The red light on the card reader blinked slowly, almost mockingly, as if the building itself had decided I no longer belonged. I swiped again, harder this time, but the same indifferent red glow stared back. My heart stuttered for just a second before I forced it steady. 23 years walking through these glass doors in Atlanta's bustling tech corridor, and now the scanner treated me like a stranger. I told myself it was a glitch, a simple misread. But deep down I knew better. Companies like Nexus Logistics didn't make mistakes like this by accident. The hallways stretched longer than usual that morning, the polished concrete floors reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights overhead. My footsteps echoed too loudly in the quiet before the rush. I hadn't even reached my desk when the email hit my phone. The subject line was clinical, organizational realignment notification. No hello. No name. Just 7 cold sentences explaining that my position as Senior Operations Infrastructure Lead had been deemed redundant. Effective immediately. Clear your desk. Return all company property. No severance details attached. Signed only with a generic HR template. I stood there in the open plan office, coffee still warm in my hand, feeling the weight of those words settle into my bones. 23 years of flawless uptime. Crisis after crisis averted in silence, reduced to a form letter. The company had grown from a regional shipping firm into a national supply chain powerhouse handling billions in freight. And I had been the invisible glue holding the back end together through every merger, every system migration, every budget slash. But none of that mattered now. They wanted fresh faces, cloud-native experts, consultants with MBAs who spoke in buzzwords. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. That wasn't me. I had always been the calm one in the storm, the one who stayed late fixing what others broke. So I started packing. My Monstera plant, the framed photo of my rescue dog Max from the shelter 5 years ago, the faded mug that read, Infrastructure Whisperer in peeling letters. Everything fit into a single cardboard box from the supply closet. Eyes followed me as I moved, colleagues pretending to study their monitors. But I could feel their curiosity like static in the air. Only Marcus from facilities paused by my desk. You okay? Elena, he whispered. I nodded, forcing a thin smile. Just some changes. The lie tasted bitter. I waited until lunch emptied the floor. Then I sat at my terminal one last time. The machine hummed quietly under my fingers, cooler than the others, almost alive in its silence, buried deep behind layers of dead directories, encrypted folders that looked like junk, and misdirection files set the protocol I had written in 2013. Back then, during the massive supply chain meltdown after the global shipping crisis, our systems had been collapsing. Vendors pointed fingers. Executives panicked, but no one had a real fix. I built Shadowlink in secret on my own time, a self-healing heartbeat layer that monitored every node, rerouted around failures, suppressed false alarms, and kept critical logistics flows alive when everything else failed. No one knew about it. I never logged it, never sought approval. It wasn't in any diagram or wiki. It was mine, born from watching too many nights where a single overlooked dependency nearly cost us millions. Shadowlink had saved us through warehouse fires, API deprecations, offshore handoffs gone wrong, and endless reorgs. It grew smarter over the years, quietly adapting during my sleepless weekends, patching around the half-baked tools consultants pushed. Today, I typed the kill command. One line. No fanfare. The terminal accepted it without protest. The system didn't react immediately. That's how good it was. Failures would unfold slowly, like roots rotting underground before the tree falls. I left my badge on the desk, box under my arm, and walked out into the crisp fall air of Atlanta. The skyscrapers gleamed indifferently. I didn't glance back. Loyalty, I had learned, was a one-way street. That night, I sat in my quiet suburban home north of the city, Max curled at my feet. For the first time in decades, no pager buzzed. No urgent Slack messages lit up my phone at 2 a.m. The silence should have felt peaceful, but instead it hummed with anticipation. I knew what was coming. Infrastructure doesn't die loudly. It fades, thread by thread, until the whole fabric unravels. The first signs appeared around 3:47 a.m.
Pacific Time,
when the nightly inventory reconciliation for the West Coast hubs hung in an endless loop. No crash. No alert, just a job that refused to complete. By morning, dependent processes began to cascade. Pricing updates for major retailers stalled. Invoice batches for the Southeast region delayed. The auto-resend logic I had quietly reinforced after a near-miss fiscal bug in 2017 never fired. Ryan, a junior ops engineer fresh out of Georgia Tech, spotted the anomaly first. He logged a Jira ticket, marked it medium, messaged the team lead. Overnight hang. Probably a patch thing. No big deal. Optimism of the inexperienced. By 10 a.m., the APAC partner portal showed incomplete balance data. An alert fired but went nowhere because Shadowlink's suppression logic was gone. Noise flooded in unchecked, static without a tuner. The new COO, a slick executive named Derek with a perfectly groomed beard and a penchant for cloud migration decks, dismissed it in stand-up as post-realignment calibration. I laughed alone in my kitchen over black coffee, picturing him sweating through his expensive shirt. He had no idea the legacy he had casually discarded. Partners started calling. Singapore flagged delayed reconciliations. Sydney reported missing invoice sets. Ops scrambled, slapping together Google Sheets workarounds for a platform that once handled millions of transactions hourly with 99.999% automation. I ignored the LinkedIn messages from old colleagues. Hey Elena, seeing weird latency, anything from your time? I let them wonder. The unraveling accelerated like fabric catching on a nail. One snag, then another. Systems didn't shatter, they frayed. Dashboards showed minor glitches. Timeouts that seemed isolated. They still called them bugs, convinced someone would patch it before clients noticed. I watched the storm I knew so well from afar. Calm now because I wasn't the one bailing water. By day 3, client-facing analytics portals began throwing obscure exceptions. No stack traces, just vague red boxes daring engineers to decipher them. 6 more dashboards joined the chorus. The pattern was impossible to trace because the protection layer had always hidden the fragility. Without Shadowlink, brittle connections between legacy nodes and new microservices began to snap. My phone vibrated with a sales team call about an escalating client threat. I swiped it away and returned to organizing my garage, old hard drives labeled meticulously from past crises, cables coiled like sleeping snakes. Each drawer a reminder of a life built in shadows. The COO's voice leaked through forwarded recordings. Smooth and performative. Clear cache. Restart endpoints. Engineers flooded Slack. 204s with no headers? Trace the trigger? Those empty responses had been Shadowlink's elegant shrug, invisible to outsiders. Now the absence screamed. Clients noticed. A major Fortune 100 retailer, worth tens of millions annually, issued a formal SLA warning citing operational instability and potential breach penalties. Legal looped in DevOps. DevOps looped in interns who rebooted Jenkins futilely. Still no one said my name. They treated the failures like random glitches, not the deliberate void left by removing the last human buffer between order and collapse. I felt no rage, only a profound subtraction. The company had called me redundant, so I became exactly that, absent. The silence I left behind grew louder each hour. Day 5 brought the real fracture. A $12 million logistics contract renewal script ran on schedule, but received no commit response. No fallback triggered. The client's legal team, with clauses timed to the second, detected the violation instantly. Sales VP erupted in the war room, voice cracking over breach threats. Chairs slammed into drywall. Audit logs showed everything technically correct, yet the critical decision branch never executed. The compliance officer's brittle voice cut through, no record of the logic layer firing. It's as if it wasn't there. It hadn't been, sealed inside Shadowlink's autonomous node. By 10 a.m., the board was urgently convened. Executives yanked from vacations. Investors demanded answers. How does a system with 2 decades of perfect uptime suddenly forget its most profitable contract? The COO stuttered about transitional turbulence and undocumented processes. The CFO snapped back. Mystery code just cost us $12 million? The room chilled. I watched forwarded clips from 3 counties away, sipping fresh dark roast, sorting old backups. Marketing's passive tweet drew a public client reply, a dumpster fire gif that went viral internally. Manual processes invaded every channel. Manual reconciliation, manual batching, manual validation. Offshore teams pulled for data entry on a platform once proud of near-perfect automation. Wait times tripled. Support tickets screamed, "Where's my data? Has your company forgotten math?" The COO ordered a backbone reset. Confusion rippled. A young dev asked nervously, "Sir, there's no documented backbone protocol." He pulled up a heat map revealing the orphan node labeled T0R, thread 0 redundant. No owner. No access history. Security audits returned blanks. Legal demanded diagrams. Nothing existed. The COO stormed out, yelling into his phone behind thin walls. His smugness cracked. At 3:17 p.m., my personal line rang. I let it buzz twice before answering. Silence first. "Elena?" Derek's voice, trailing off. "We're in a situation. There may have been something you didn't transfer. A deeply embedded protocol. Can we talk off the record?" I let the pause stretch. "You mean the part you labeled redundant?" He rushed. "Name your terms. Consulting rate. Whatever you need." I hung up. Not in anger, but finality. When you rip out wiring and expect lights to stay on, you don't get a guided tour of the fuse box. You sit in darkness until you understand the grid was never yours. Day 7. Legacy Ghost Node trended in their trackers. Board questioned why the new genius couldn't fix a problem that didn't exist until my removal. Morning of Day 8. The CEO called directly. Voice practiced but thinner. "This shouldn't have happened this way. I trusted the process. My team. We didn't understand what you actually did." Silence from me. He carried it. "I've seen the reports. The T0 node. Routing anomalies. Suppressed alerts for years. None documented." "No," I said. "We're trying to reverse engineer it. It worked flawlessly until it didn't." "It was invisible," I replied. "That's why it worked." He exhaled. "Would you consult? Bring it back online." "Any terms?" There it was, the bowed heads. Checkbook extended. I quoted flatly, $75,000 per day. Minimum 5-day retainer. Paid up front. He inhaled sharply. "I'm not negotiating. Not after redundant." He pivoted desperately. "Full-time return? Senior title. Discretion." I laughed softly. Not bitter, precise. "Rehire the ghost? Cute. Wire by 5 p.m. Or rate increases. Your credibility drains hourly." He understood the math. If nothing else. Later that day, an email arrived from the CTO of our largest affected client. Sharp. Direct. Reviewed incident logs. Operations was you. Truth, did you keep it running? Yes. 2 hours later. A call with her and legal. No fluff. They wanted a full rebuild, clean architecture, transparent logic. No more ghosts. Your name on it. Watermark retained. Clarity clicked. Not revenge, but resurrection on my terms. Contract signed with full control stack. Pipeline.
Keys.
The next morning, I stood in their temporary Atlanta office, bare desk, fresh monitors, plastic-wrapped whiteboard. No legacy rot. No buzzword consultants. I chose the tools that worked, explainable in minutes to juniors, built from necessity, anticipating failures instead of hiding them. It wasn't payback against Derek or the board. Their system rotted from undervaluing the invisible. This was mine, thread one. For evolving, not just surviving. In a distant boardroom, Derek sat alone with the post-mortem report. The node reference stared back. Access revoked. Tied to non-corporate entity. Irrecoverable. He tried commands futilely. The terminal pulsed steadily. Remembering. Another client terminated quietly. They called me redundant. I let the theory test itself. In the end, infrastructure reveals truth. People build the invisible threads that hold empires. Erase them at your peril. The question lingers. Who really owns the systems we trust? And what happens when the quiet hands that maintain them finally let go? The silence that follows echoes longest.